Okay, so a little while ago, saw a bunch of videos on survival bracelets, and watched a bunch of them. And I was like, oh, this is something I could probably do. It looks interesting. It's kind of crafty, so I was like, okay. And so I made a couple standard single one weave, and then I've got double weaves here, and they're typical survival bracelets. Not much to them. And I started thinking, I was like, well, it's great having a bunch of rope with you out in the woods if you need it for some reason. I mean, I guess, if you unravel it and then you can pull out the inner threads and, lash together a raft or something, build things, I guess, tie stuff off. They're great shoelace replacements. This one's got about 9 feet of paracord in it. This one's got about 18, I guess, maybe 19 feet. And so that's cool. I've seen a couple of videos. There's a guy who has a bracelet that's got a loop, steel loop, and then a fire steel, so that's how it's hooked together, and then it's got jute running down the middle, and just a piece of steel on it, so he can go ahead and disassemble that and start a fire. There's another video out there. Guy's got a central core of snare line inside the bracelet. So I started thinking about it, and those two actually make more sense than just a bunch of cord. And I started thinking about EDC. There's different levels. People have the EDC where it's stuff they carry in their pocket, and then maybe they'll have a bag that's got a little more stuff in it and redundancies of the stuff that they had in their pocket, and then then there's the backpack, which has even more. So I figured it would be really great if you had an EDC that just was on your wrist. So maybe not something that you would necessarily carry day to day, like at work or in school, but if you're going to go camping, or you were in a situation where the shit hit the fan and you're like, oh, I got to get out of Dodge, it's always something that you would have on you. So I went ahead and I made this bracelet right here, and it's similar to regular double weave. It's a little thicker across the middle, and you can see there's a bit of a bulge there. It fits fairly comfortably. It's a little less flexible than the regular one, but you can see it's sitting on there. I kind of rushed the braid here, but I'll go over that when I disassemble it. I didn't finish it off because I knew I was going to be taking it apart, and I'll have to put it all back together again after I disassemble it. So anyway, I was talking with a coworker, and he's a pretty avid outdoors guy and goes hunting and fishing every spring and fall, and summertime he goes out and does stuff, and he's got a bunch of these. A lot of them he's gotten from his son, and we were talking about how this is just rope, and he made a comment about if he had a way to catch fish and start a fire, and if he especially if he also had a compass, he'd be able to survive pretty much anywhere for an extended period of time. And I was like, first off, that's a bold statement, but if you're confident in something like that, that's cool. And also, though, it got me thinking, could you put pretty much everything you needed into a bracelet? And I didn't want to get carried away, so I figured if anybody was going to the level that they were going to make something like this, then they're probably also carrying a knife of some sort. And even if they didn't have a knife, if it was a last minute dash out the door or whatever, you're going to have keys in your pocket, or you can find something out in the wilds, I guess. So with that in mind, I tried to design a bracelet that I thought would have enough stuff in it for at least some means of survival in the wilderness, if you lost pretty much everything else. And you know, I have one of these strapped to my backpack that goes with me every day to work. You know, if I were to get into a situation where I had to bail, that bracelet would be getting taken off of the backpack and stuck on my wrist. That way, if you know, even if I lost the bag, I'd still have the bracelet. You know, obviously you can keep stuff in your pockets, but you know, how much crap can you actually keep in your pockets for an extended period of time, and do you really want to have everything in your pocket? So with that in mind, my goal here was to put together a bracelet that would enable you to more easily start a fire out in the woods, and have a means of catching some sort of food, you know, animal, obviously. So there's two levels to this bracelet, but this is not the, oh crap, I have to get everything immediately. This is the kind of thing where you get to where you need to be and you sit down, collect yourself, figure out what your next step is going to be, and then start working on a survival plan. I've seen a couple bracelets out there where it's I don't know exactly what the weave's called, but it's got a finishing knot, but once you undo that knot, you just grab one end of the bracelet and yank it apart, and now you've got 10, you know, 15 feet of line. And I think that's really great, because you know, if there was a point in time where you needed to get rope quick, you know, well, that's what that would be for. And that's not really what this is about. This here is, you get somewhere relatively safe and calm, and you sit down and you assess the situation, and while you're assessing the situation, you can start unraveling your bracelet. So I've got this first layer pretty much undone, and I'm going to stop there so I can disassemble the outer packet, I guess is what you'd call it. Alright, so let's see. Alright, so there we are. We're down to a single weave. Now this here is just a piece of paracord that's been that's had the inner core, the inner nylon core removed from it. And I have this on here mainly for two reasons. One, it hides the white color, and it acts as a protective layer over top of this white. So here it is. It's just a, I don't know, about 3 feet of outer sleeve. This could be useful for a couple different things. Tying something off. It's still fairly strong, so it's certainly not something to just throw away. So this here is Teflon tape. Now you really kind of want to make sure you get the whole thing off, because this is something that may be useful to you at some point in time. And obviously it's got a little wear, you can see compression lines in it, and that's fine. It's still intact. Treat it gently. Find a stick, or if you've got a pen or something, you know, you can rewrap this around some other item and hold on to it. You never know when you might need something like this. It's a fairly useful piece of material. It's relatively inert. It's waterproof. You can use this for sealing something up. Who knows? Maybe you'll have like you'll find like a water bottle or something, but it leaks at the cap. You can wrap this around the cap. You can use it to wrap off cuts. You know, 2 or 3 layers of this tightly wrapped around. It's going to help seal and protect the cut, and at the same time, you know, it's inert, so it's going to reduce the chances of you getting infection of some sort. So there's some Teflon tape. Next is thread. This is regular old thread. Well, not really. This is Kevlar thread. Is it better than sewn thread? Well, it's going to be stronger. Now obviously you can use this for a bunch of different purposes. Very least patch a hole in your jeans or whatever pants you happen to be wearing. Can be used for stitching up a cut if you get a deep cut. And I'm sure there's 100 other uses for strong thread, really strong thread. So let me just set that down, undo this. So there you go, several feet. This is like 6 feet Kevlar thread. Once again, stick something, wrap it around there. Fire steel, magnesium rod. Pretty self-explanatory. Ideally, you're obviously going to have a pocket knife with you or some other kind of knife. This here is a little packet of wax paper that I sealed with wax. I'm unraveling it now carefully. And inside we've got 2 small fish hooks. 1, 2. Now originally I had the points dipped in wax to keep from cutting through things. And that just comes right off. And then there you go, 2 fish hooks, which you can't see now against the blanket. I'll fix that in a minute. And then this here is char cloth. It's about 5 pieces. And obviously with the wax paper, it can be a extra source of tinder. You know, tear it up real fine, pile that into whatever you're going to start burning. Char cloth. So there you go. We've got magnesium rod, and fire steel, char cloth, wax paper there, and then those 2 fishing hooks. And that leads us to the rest of the bracelet. Let me get this unraveled. So obviously you can use the inner nylon lines with the fishing hooks if you needed to. I don't know if fish are going to respond or how they'll respond to seeing nylon. Make these tight. I should have made it a little looser. It'd be easier to undo this right off the bat. Alright, so I'll speed the video up right here so you don't have to sit here and watch me undo this slowly and painfully. Alright, now what we have here is a snare line, or snare wire and fishing line. So right where I had it connected, I used a Sharpie to mark it up a little bit, and now all I gotta do is unravel the whole thing. So alright, so here's fishing line. Now another option would be to spool this up onto something very small and include it in the packet, but I figured that having it in the central core would be the best place for it. Now this is 8-pound line. You could probably use something a little stronger than this. I was just trying to keep the thickness down. Anyways, about 12 feet of fishing line right there. Now this here is wrapped in more Teflon tape, primarily because it's wire. I wanted to cut down on the amount of friction generated by the wire, and honestly I don't know where this starts. The ravel starts on this. It's really tightly wound, and you would probably end up just cutting this off. Alright, so that's done. I'm not going to unravel this all the way, but essentially it was put on the same way as the fishing line. So just back and forth, weaving it through the clip. I have a jig that I made to hold the bracelet in place while I braid it. So you know, once I got the length, and I just started wrapping the wire around. And this is 24 gauge steel. It's galvanized steel wire. It's relatively flexible, and you can do a lot with it, but its main purpose here would be to set up snares. So once you got to an area where you could sit down and, you know, deal with things, you could set out some traps in the evening and maybe have something for breakfast. Alright, so get rid of this. But we ended up with it's 20 feet of paracord, 3 feet of just a sleeve of paracord, magnesium rod, fire steel, char cloth, 2 fishing hooks, wax paper, Kevlar thread, fishing line, Teflon tape, and 12 feet of snare line. And that's it. And hopefully you guys find this interesting, and maybe come up with some other ideas, things to add. I thought about on the top surface about adding a just a compass, maybe even a watch on the top side, but because of the bulge, it's a little awkward. You could maybe like braid in one of those little button compasses down over on the side somewhere. Yeah, so there's my EDC survival bracelet.